today. As many of you know, I'm very much a winter solstice person, and I always think of winter solstice as my new year. However, I'd like to also roll with what is the collective storytelling. And right now the collective storytelling is that December 31st is New Year's Eve. So I really felt like it'd be a perfect time to work collectively to project into the field what we're calling in for this new year. So just introduce myself. My name is Isis Indria, born in Mesa, Arizona, raised on the island of Guam. I'm a Chamorro woman. And I live in Nevada City, California. This is the ancestral homelands of the Mesa people. Ustama is the name of this region. And I always like to start with a simple prayer. So we're going to really just go right into it because Sigil Craft can take a while. And we're going to do a very shortened version, and we'll go through what sigils are, define them, and explore a little bit more about their meaning, and then we'll get into the craft itself. So I'd love to start with a prayer. I feel like it's very important to start with a prayer. Oh, okay. Thank you for that note. Is that better? Can you hear me better? Yes. That's good? Okay. I'm going to try to turn that music up one more time and then let me know how it goes. Yeah. So I'm not really sure what you guys heard, but I'll just say once again, my name is Isis Indria, born in Mesa, Arizona, raised on the island of Guam, Chamorro woman. And we're just going to get started with a prayer. We're going to go right into it. So every time I start with a prayer, I'm essentially, just so everyone knows, I'm acknowledging the ancestral homelands of where I am currently inhabiting. And so I really love if everyone in the group, if you wanted to speak the names of the tribes of the ancestral homelands from where you are, like type them into the chat. I love that. I think that's really important. So I do that first. Then I acknowledge all of my ancestors and each and every one of ours, our guides and allies, because I always feel like they're present every time we do any kind of magical working. And then I call upon the holy beings. I work in the 8 directions and the 3 worlds. So you'll hear that. And then right there, I just ask to be a vessel, to be an instrument for whatever wants to be shared through me. I like to really believe that I'm just an instrument and a vessel for all of these teachings and that come through. And so I'd like to acknowledge it that way and make an offering. So I just want to let you know, some people have asked me, well, what are you praying about? You know, and sometimes it's pretty much the exact same thing at the very beginning. And there's a reason why, because I'm setting up a container. Okay. So once again, I'm just going to light a little of this sage. The other thing too, I love to share, it's really nice to know where all your medicines come from. Like this sage is a combination of harvest sage that we grew and harvested, and then also been passed to us from a friend that grew it. It's really nice to really know the origins and have stories related to everything that you're working with ritually. It's also really important too to think about all the people that are involved in your ritual working, so they receive that good thought and that good blessing. Okay, so the offering I'm going to work with, which I love to work with, many of you know, is frankincense. This is from Oman, a journey that I made down there with my dear friend Mark and Elijah Sage. And so I'm going to make this prayer now. And please also write the names of the tribes, ancestral homelands in the chat. They have been great. Awesome. So I want to say greetings and gratitudes to these ancestral homelands here of the Nisenan people. This particular area, Ustama, also known as Nevada City. Just want to speak also Shelley Covert, Ginger Covert's name here too, like that. And that way, all the names of all the ancestral homelands and the tribes that are being shared right now in the chat, just greetings and gratitudes to each and every one of you that way. And also like to call upon my benevolent ancestors, guides, and allies, and call upon each and every one of our, say greetings and gratitudes to each and every one of our benevolent ancestors, guides, and allies that have brought us together on this day, December 31st, 2020. Thank you so much. And humbly, I just would like to say greetings and gratitudes and call upon the holy beings of the directions and the 3 worlds. And in the east, like to call upon, say greetings to the holy beings of the east. Say greetings to you, Aset in the east. And in the southeast, greetings and gratitudes to the holy beings, and calling upon, right now in the southeast, saying you're acknowledging here at this time. Amenta. And then in the south, say greetings and gratitudes to you, holy beings, Sirket. And in the southwest, greetings and gratitudes to you, Afneteru, holy beings of the southwest. In the west, greetings and gratitudes to that sunset time that's happening right now. Thank you for that moment at the sun sets and the moon rises, a special threshold moment. Thank you, Neptis. In the northwest, greetings and gratitudes to you, Venu, that phoenix, that transformative moment here as we travel deeper into the evening that way. Thank you. And into the north, greetings and gratitudes to Neith, grandmother of the grandmothers, ancestors like that. Greetings, hello. Calling upon you, holy beings. And then in the northeast, calling upon you, Kekiyut. That soma, that food, that nourishment and consciousness that guides us and helps us and supports us in everything that we're doing in our hearts, minds, bodies, and spirits that way. And in the above world, Sishata Hetea Nut, sun, moon, star nations, greetings and gratitudes, calling upon you at this time. And in the nether world, Ser, the resurrection of divine remembrance in each and every one of us, our divine nature, who we are. And in this middle world, calling upon you, saying greetings to you, Geb, Shu, Tefnut, Mother Earth, Pachamama. Thank you in service to cosmic law, cosmic truth, cosmic order. Thank you to the Oracle, Nefertiti, Queen Tai, each and every one of my teachers, William J. Kiesel, particularly with Sigil Craft, and every one of my teachers that have guided me along the way. Thank you. And here in this time, my humble prayer here is that may everything that is shared here this sunset time, this evening, be helpful, be useful, be supportive, be beneficial, and help each and every one of us in the closure of this cycle and the really entering into 2021 with a good heart, good feeling, joy, clarity of what we are projecting into our lives and our paths moving forward. In that way, I humbly ask to be an instrument and vessel for you, Oracle, for anything that you have to share at this time. And then may everything that's shared here be somehow an offering and a gift and some nourishment into the web of all of our relations, human and non-human, four-legged, the two-legged, the swimming ones, the insect beings, the standing ones, the swimming ones, all of the blessed beings of this earth and creation like that. Somehow some nourishment. And so it is. Blessed be. Okay. All right. So there's an offering of this frankincense here, and something that we like to do through the camera is just bring your hands out like this towards it and just receive some of this blessed medicine. We believe in this time of the Aquarian age that somehow it reaches all of us that way. All right. Okay. Thank you for taking time to join us here in the Academy of Oracle Arts and Ouroboros for this class. I love sigils, sigil crafts, symbols. I've been a great student of this particular practice for a very long time. I have a book of sigils. It's something that I love doing. It's one of my favorite things to do. And we're going to review a very particular, very simple technology of sigil craft. There are many different ways to do this, and they can be as specific and as deep and as dense as you wish. And I'm going to share today a very simple version and a practice that you can work with and take home with you and utilize in all kinds of ways. And I'm going to put up a presentation that Sonia made me do so that we can go through the different definitions and images and steps. So thanks to Sonia, there's this PowerPoint presentation for each and every one of you. One thing that's really important is to have your journal, because you're going to do some drawings. And actually, somebody had brought up in a question to me the other day, we did a very short 15-minute sigil class, and they said, does it have to look a certain way? And the answer is no. This is each and every one of our individual creative expressions. And this is where each and every one of us, we're all artists. Art is creating something, no matter what it is. And so this is where we get to activate our artist sides again, and acknowledge ourselves that way. Sometimes people think of artists just as like painters and musicians and things like that. And I feel like the entire world is art because it's based off our creations, So this is where we get to call upon that artist nature in us and that childlike nature to create. And before we do that, I just want to show you a very simple numerology practice that's very, very easy. And I'm going to start to use this whiteboard. Many of you that come to a lot of the classes that we do, you've seen this before, but somebody asked me to do this. I'm going to do it. Today is dry erase marker 12/31/2020. Right? More numbers. Can everybody see this? That's the date. Okay, so now what I'm going to invite you to do is to count this number, this out one at a time. So you're going to do 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 1 plus 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 0. Don't forget those zeros. Even though they don't add anything, you still want to acknowledge them because all of creation is in a 0. So just add that up and then let me know what your number is. No calculators. This is a very classic super numerological practice. Every number is a sigil. It's a symbol. So we're working with sigils in numbers that we utilize pretty much every single day. So let me know what your number is. I did terrible writing backwards job, but hey, I'm an artist. So I do my best the way that I do it. Okay. So let's see in the chat what we got here.
Someone said 14.
14.
Said 1, 11 to 2, 11, 11.
Wow, we got a lot of different numbers. Okay, so we're going to try this again. So remember, you do 1 plus 2, that's December 12, right? And then you do plus 3 plus 1, because it's the 31st. And then you do plus 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 0, which is 2020. Then you add all that together. I have personally 11.
Yeah.
You got 11? Okay.
And then don't you do
Sydney time. Oh, cool. We have some Sydney Aussie folks. Awesome. So we got also a different date.
Would it be 1 plus 1 though, 2? 1 plus 1 is 2?
Yes, exactly. So we have 11 and then we have 2. Now, the way that we map this for those that like the tarot is we can look at the keys and what the numbers are associated with the tarot, and that gives us an overarching quality of the day. So it's going to be different in a different time zone, but for here we have 11, and then we add 11, 1 and 1 together, you get 2. So now usually in the tarot, 0 is the Fool, 1 is the Magician, 2 is the High Priestess. But in this context, we're going to look at it, the Fool as 1, Magician as 2, High Priestess is 3, because we want to count the Fool. Yeah. So I said number 2. What's number 2?
High Priestess.
Magician.
Magician, right?
Yep. So now we have the Magician as an archetype that we're working with. If we distill the 11 to 2, I'm just going to do the Magician. Now, Magicianship Qualities is very much a Sigil Craft practice. I mean, it feels very relevant to what we're doing today. Working with, in relation and interface with these divine qualities and principles to distill our prayer and our intent into a symbol.
Matt says, isn't the Magician 1?
The Fool.
Is 1.
Because we're counting this where I just said that we're going to do 0, the Fool as 1. And so then generally you see the Fool as 0, and then the Magician's 1, the High Priestess is 2. But in this context, we're going to look at it in terms of the Fool being 1 and the magician being 2. So because we want to include the Fool in this numerological experiment.
Okay, she got it.
Cool. This is one way we're doing it. Now what we're seeing here is like, whoa, there's a lot of ways we can do everything. And so we're just learning how to experiment and explore in a certain way. So magicianship qualities, please put in the chat, Maz and others, what are some magicianship qualities that are part of the energy we're working with today? And I'm going to pull up our PowerPoint. Go ahead, write them in. And now I'm going to pull up our share screen here. I need you to allow me to screen share. I love these. Crafting, imagination, working with the elements, illusion, alchemy, having all the tools, but not necessarily knowing how to use them, vision, creation. These are all beautiful examples. Beautiful. And oftentimes you'll see the magician pointing up that way, connecting to this infinite light source energy as a vessel and an instrument. And when you think about it, we're all creating every day. We're always making something, we're always doing something. It's just how much are we aware and how much intention do we have in what we're doing? And we're always moving forward. And even in our moving forward, simultaneously that can help heal and take care of and tend to things backwards that have happened before in our ancestry. But we are always moving forward. And so I really like to think of the magician as a reminder for me to be more intentional and clear about what it is I'm moving forward with, like all the time, as a creator. There's not really room for victimhood in here, Now it's awareness of things that have happened to us that, we're never going to let that happen again, kind of a thing. And we do all have healing and trauma and things that we need to work through for sure. So it's not dishonoring any of that, but it's also stepping into more responsibility on what it is we're intending for our lives moving forward. And that's very much what this class is about. Okay, so now I'm going to put up this share screen and we're going to hop right into it per Sonia's request.
Everyone's going to thank me later.
No, for sure. I'm already thanking her. It was a great idea. Okay, so I'm going to start in the very beginning. Now, a lot of people have asked me, what is this symbol? This is a sigil. And this is a sigil that I did in a ritual with Sonia, actually. And this is, we did this in ritual, and it is literally Academy of Oracle Arts, letter for letter, distilled into this symbol. Like literally drawing out, which is what we're going to do. I drew out the entire term Academy of Oracle Arts, the entire phrase. And through the process that we're going to do, the process of breaking down and distillation, it turned into this sigil, which is now the logo of the school. And that's very classic. Logos or sigils, What are some classic logos that are in the field? Write some names of some classic logos that are in the field that are very, very common. Mercury. That's Venus. What are some logos that are like companies that you know off the top of your head?
Yin Yang,
What's that?
Yin Yang.
Yin Yang. That's a great one. I love that one. Caduceus. Bluetooth.
Definitely.
Yep. Caduceus. McDonald's. Target. I mean, it's wild when you think about it. And so we don't even necessarily, we all know, like, hashtag, totally. That's a good one. And it's interesting to think about that off the top of your head. Like, wow, all the examples that you each suggested, we pretty much all know what those are. Nike. And so these are symbols or sigils that are projected into the field that go into our conscious and subconscious. So this is what's going on. So sigils are a means of symbolizing desire and giving it form that prevents, how do I get out? Close that. Sorry. That prevents thought on that particular desire and allows its free passage into the subconscious. This is by Austin Osman Spare. We're going to go deeper into sigils, but this is his definition, which I really like it. Okay. Now to the next slide. So this is what we're doing. Every moment we're creating something, we're always setting something in motion. whether it's just how aware are we doing it. By the very act of being a spirit and a body, we're always setting something in motion, even when we feel like we're in stillness. Because what we imagine and what we think, thought is the first like manifestation technology from our imagination. We get that divine spark of imagination. It's like, boom. Then we think about it. And then we think about it more and explore it further. And we choose which ones we're going to think about. And that the choosing of what we're going to think about from those divine sparks of imagination starts to set something in motion. So every time we hear about the power of meditation, it is so real and so true, because there's a lot going on in here, you know? And then when we bring something into word, it sets the whole level of manifestation into another layer. And then we put into action, which we're going to do today with sigils, it's a whole nother step. And then when from that action, we project it into the field and we pray with it, we put on the altar, we work with it, that manifests it even more. And so this is what we're doing, is we're working with the technologies of manifestation. Now, abundance is an interesting term because it's the way that I like to think about things, especially with projecting a feeling into the field, or a business, or a project, or a quality, is how is this of benefit to me and my life? And also, how is this of service to others? So it's like I'm an instrument of service. Now, I want to include myself in that. I want to serve myself and serve my dreams and my hopes. But how are my dreams and visions also serving others? And so this is, I really want to speak to this, because sometimes in the Western world, we just love to get more and but don't know what we're getting more for. And I feel like creation is so active with us. You know, one of my teachers said, creation isn't biased. Creation is just going to support and amplify what you set in motion. So the more clear you are and the more direct you are, the more creation's like, oh, okay, now I know what you wanted to do. That makes sense. But if it's all over the place, it's sort of like confusing. And when things are confusing and they're not clear, it's just hard to follow and make it happen. And then what I also love to think about was this Egyptian ancient cosmological idea from Rosemary Clark's works in the Heliopolis tradition. She talks about there's an interface and a co-creative dynamic occurring. And part of the role of the human is to be part of that co-creative dynamic with the divine, with the natural world, and with the human realm. And so there is we are designed to be instrument of service. We're here to serve our lives, our families, our relations, and the non-human world. And so I just want to speak to that as an offering into your sigil working. Because as we get deeper into magical practices, we're also doing the transformational work so that our acts become that. And we want to be very clear about what our acts are for. And that feeling, and this is where it pierces through even that energy of jealousy, when we feel so happy to see others thriving. We receive joy and happiness from the feeling of wanting others to thrive too. And so what we're creating and making is connected to that purpose. You know, we even feel more joy and happiness because of the joy and happiness we feel seeing others thrive too. Because we're all in it together. So we might as well all help each other out along the way. Okay? Yep, Sonia.
Music.
Yeah.
A little bit more.
Yes.
Repeating with your voice.
Okay, thank you. I'll just move it over here. Okay. All right. So how do we gain access and communicate with our subconscious? Because sigils, like in Austin's previous sentence or words that I spoke of earlier, is it connects us to our subconscious. And how do we arise these hidden feelings and desires into the conscious mind to manifest the beauty we want to see in the world? Sigil Craft is a way to do that. Now, this is an art form born of the Western Mystery School tradition, as far as I understand it. But if you look further back and you start to look into ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, there's sigils. You know, one symbol that maybe looks like this.
The board on that side, and then you sit next to it.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you see that symbol. In Egyptian hieroglyphics, that means a lot of different things. It means tons of different things. In fact, it's like when you look at an Aquarius sigil, that's sigil for Aquarius, the symbol. Aquarius means all kinds of things. It's a whole world, it's a whole story. And so that's essentially what we're doing, is we're distilling a story into a symbol. And then we're projecting that into the field and building a bridge between our subconscious and our conscious realm. And then that way we can meditate and work with that sigil and symbol to continue to manifest the beauty we want to see in the world. Okay? Now, sigils are images. They're composed of letters in this particular form that we're doing, composed of letters, images and letters brought together to create one symbol. Okay?
So really quick logistical stuff, because when you draw things and you share your screen, you're really little. So if you could maybe just stop sharing your screen.
Okay.
And then show it, and then maybe put your board on that side, so then you're not, so that you can just like write like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sonia. Logistical techniques. Perfect. Thank you.
Is that good?
Yeah. All right. Okay, cool. So I will, and just remind me if I forget to stop screen sharing. Okay. All right. So if you look at your PowerPoint, I just wanted to show you this image. It's a blueprint of the Tree of Life. I am going to do a series in March, end of February and March, just on the Tree of Life, because it is a template that I work with. It's a blueprint, a living system. I'm coming from the Hermetic Kabbalah tradition. So we're going to get into this later, but we're going to talk a little bit about it in this session. But if you see all these symbols. You know, you see the swastika, you see the zodiacal wheel. You know, here's a swastika, the zodiacal wheel, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, and then the elemental wheel, directions. These are sigils, these are symbols that have all kinds of meanings. And I love to use this example every class I do, where you see Mercury here. And if you look at Mercury as a sigil, you see also the moon. There's the moon here, right? The crescent moon. Then you see in the circle can be referenced sometimes as the sun, or the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. And then you see the cross at the bottom, equal armed cross, and then you see that here too, the elements, the equal armed cross. And so I like to think about that, where like Mercury is in relationship to the sun and the moon and the earth, the equal armed cross. You know, Mercury is often referenced as one that travels and can travel through multiple dimensions, and to the gods and back again, and goddesses and back to the human realm again, and back and forth. So this is where you start to see, okay, even in the sigil Mercury, there are 3 examples of other sigils that have all different kinds of meanings associated with them. It's a very good example. Okay, so moving forward, this is the dictionary definition. An inscribed or painted symbol considered to have magical power. A seal, there's an example, the supply wanes before the high king's sigil. It's an archaic form. Literally, it means a sign or a symbol. Sigillus or sigilla, where it comes from, and it's plural is sigilla, is a type of symbol used in magic. Now, I love this quote by Lon Milo Duquette. We don't do magic. We become magicians, so all acts become magical acts. And what that means is through the transformational work, where we become vessels of transformation continuously so that we can be instruments of magical workings. We're not going to do magic. We become magicians. I really like that quote. I think that's a very important one, because oftentimes with the Harry Potter world, we think that we have to go out and do magic, where, you know, it's where life is magic. We are constantly creating. It's just more intention and awareness in what we're creating. Okay. So go ahead and read it. You know, I'm not going to read through it because I don't think it needs to. But one thing that's important, refers to a symbolic representation of the practitioner's desired outcome. It's an important phrase. A symbolic representation of the practitioner's desired outcome. Okay? Now remember, what I'm offering here is in your desired outcome, may it also include being of service to all beings, human and non-human, making your life of service to the benefit of all beings. Love to like include that in your prayer today if you're open for that. Okay. Now, oftentimes sigils were a lot of sigils that you'll see in kind of like the older occult traditions are connected to a lot of angelic magic, and the practice that when to summon these different god forms and beings to assist us in our magical workings. In this particular style, we're doing an Austin Osman Spare style, and it's really to call upon the forces in our unconscious psyche and become clear operators in our conscious world. So we're building that bridge between the subconscious and the conscious. And this is an Austin Osman Spare reference, okay? Okay, now we're gonna get into, we're taking a look at some common sigils that we see before we get into the practice. So here we see Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sag. Now these are examples of sigils and symbols that have worlds of meanings. And I'm just kind of bringing these forward to really bring out, like, to help us notice that we actually see them all the time. And we're getting to know and learn about corresponding relationships to symbols. So there's a little bit of that. And now this blueprint is the flow that we are working with in our Sigil Craft working tonight. For those of you that know me really well, you know that I'm a big lover of the Tree of Life. It's a great teacher for me. I'm always learning. I don't know if I could probably look at this blueprint. I will be looking at this blueprint for the rest of my life and learning from it. And that's why I love it so much. So what we're doing is we're going to do a particular practice and style that's moving from the manifest world, which is down here, that gets referenced as the kingdom. And we're going to move up the tree in this flow. I like to call it the path of the jewels, through all of these steps and stages. So we're going to do 10 steps, and each one of those steps reference a particular sphere, a sephira of the Sephiroth. And each of these sephira have a particular energy or quality that we're working within. So right there, we're the steps and stages of the Sigil Craft session we're doing is inside of a sigil, a symbol. So it's very fractal like that. And we're working inside a flow of creation. I just kind of want to show you. So we're going to do 10 steps, but we're going to do them this way until our crown sigil is what we work with for the next cycle, as long as you wish. Okay? It's a little bit different than you see in some of the other, oftentimes in Kabbalistic traditions, when you're bringing down an idea into form, you come from the lightning path and you go all the way down. And now we're bringing a prayer into a symbol to project. That's what we're doing. Okay? So, who knows this sigil? I think everybody knows this sigil. Now we see the sigil of Venus on the sigil of the Tree of Life. And it's just symbols. And they have so much depth and meaning. And so this is what we're working with today. Now, these are the steps and stages that we're going to do. And we're going to go through these are the Kabbalistic terms, Malkuth in the Hebrew language. We're going to go through this order, Malkuth, Yesod, Hod, Netzach, Tiferet, all the way through. Now, the first thing, before I begin, are there any questions before we start doing the steps? No? Okay.
Not yet. We're good.
All right. So, the first step in any intentional ritualistic practice, it's very helpful to set the space, right? So the first thing we did is, we have the candles here, we have the medicines, we have water, we have all of the elements of the earth, and the smoke is the wind, is the air. So we have all the elements present. We also have our ritual tools. We're like working in our scribe nature. We have our ritual tools to do the craft. And then, we set the container, and that helps so that, you're creating an environment where your ability to focus and be present with what you're doing is there. Now, some of us that have kids or families are in the middle of a bunch of things that might be hard, but, at least we are together holding this container for everybody. So even though we're all over the world in different time zones, we're creating one big magic circle, And so next what we're going to do is a very simple ritual, a calling in ritual. And this is where we call in our higher self, our super conscious, our divine conscious self to be with us in the magical practice. And Sonia was practicing hers this morning, so I'm going to ask her to guide us in this.
Oh, are we doing the
calling in?
Okay.
So Sonia is going to guide us in this, and you can just repeat after her. Doing this.
Right. Hi, everyone. My name is Sonia Rose. I am subbing for Roxy, and this morning I was practicing my calling upon and magic circle with Selena. So thanks for joining us. So we're going to just start. We're going to do a call and response. And what you're going to do, and everyone's just going to stay on mute so we can hear, is you're going to start with your hands in prayer and just follow me. So I, Sonia Rose, invoke infinite source energy to align my higher self with the will of the divine.
To align my higher self with the will of the divine.
I ground, making my life an offering, so that I may be in service and benefit, into the web of life. And then you open your arms up into the mycelial network.
Do it one more time.
Okay, so we're going to do it one more time because I kind of flipped some words. Okay, so again, hands in prayer, call and response. I, Sonia Rose, invoke infinite source light to align my higher self with the will of the divine. I ground, making my life an offering, so that I may be in benefit and service, into the web of life. Okay. And then you want to do the magic circle?
I think that might be a little tricky reading this.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Sonia. Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. So that's a calling in, right, that you guys can work with if you wish. It's really helpful. It helps us ground ourselves and really bring our our divine consciousness, our conscious and our subconscious together. Usually what we do in our ritual work is we create a magic circle in this image of Venus. But I feel like we're good. We don't need to right now. We're gonna go ahead and move forward. Okay, so the next piece, this is the piece that is very, very important. This is where we're moving up the tree into Yesod, the foundation. Clarify and write down the intention for making a sigil offering. What is this for? So you literally want to write down in words what this sigil is for. It can be a sentence, it can be one word, it can be your business, it can be maybe some healing energy you would like to send somewhere, healing energy towards my father, my mother, my sister, or my family.
Can you stop sharing the video?
Oh yeah, stop share, thank you. Just tell me whenever to stop share. Okay, so this is where you want to write down exactly what you're going to distill your sigil into. Like, what is your prayer? What is your intention that you're going to make a symbol out of to project? Now, I like to think of the new year in the Gregorian calendar timeline as a projection of a sigil for the year. For instance, last year, I made this sigil, and I also did a sigil for limitless focus. And then that was my practice for the entire year. It was limitless focus. With yeah, we were in Sigil, Egypt. That's right. Good memory. So it can be, you know, I'm using these as an example where you saw the first sigil was the Business Academy of Oracle Arts. And then another one is limitless focus. Or if you want to send some healing energy. Now, we're not trying to influence anybody's will. We're just making an offering. That's very important. All we're doing is making an offering. So what's your prayer you want to distill into a sentence? So we're going to put this, give you 3 minutes, 3 minutes to write your prayer. Like what it either can be a prayer, or it can be a phrase, or it can be a name of a business. Just write it out in one long sentence.
Can you give an example of a prayer?
Yeah. So my prayers are usually very long. Just be very clear about that. A refined prayer. To be of service. My prayer is to be of service and be of benefit to my life and all of my relations. That could be a prayer. To be of service and benefit in my life and to all of my relations. Or could be for a home. My prayer is to attract a home with these qualities. You know, you can be that specific too. And oftentimes, what's that?
Can you do it for a relationship?
You can definitely do a relationship. Now, the thing that's important for relationships is you don't want to like insert your will upon, but if you want to call in a relationship, 100%. Absolutely. I've actually done that. So I'm really glad you brought that up. Where, you know, qualities. Now, some people are like, you can go ahead and put a spell on that person. I don't really personally suggest that. But I do, for a relationship, suggest writing out the qualities you're looking for in a person. Because then the universe can surprise you. Because what if you think it's this one person and you do a sigil of their name to come to you? And it actually, there's all these qualities about them that you thought you wanted, but you realized you didn't later. So I like to keep it open so miracles and surprises can come around. Okay? Any other questions? No.
Yeah.
Okay. Great questions. So now now one thing I will say, for the context of this class, I would suggest keeping a simpler, shorter version for this class. And then once you have the technology, do as long as you want. But I just want to make sure that you can get the technology first. So try to keep it within like 1 to 5 words, 1 to 5 words for now. And then again, once you have this technology, you can do a full detailed one. Like a long, long prayer. Okay? So one more question.
Video for 3 minutes.
Yeah. So I'm going to do a timer. Try to keep it again in 3 to 5 words for the context of this class, and you can do more. And then we're going to do 3 minutes. Okay? I'm going to put on a timer. So wrapping it up. Now, just even in that process, I had like 8 things, different things I wanted to do sigil on. And I chose to do a very simple one that I already spoke of, just so we can get the practice dialed. Now, Sonia too, she had a whole list of things. So for the context of this class, keep it simple. And then right after, do the more complex one. But you just want to make sure you got the technology, because sometimes if it's too long, it's harder to understand how to do it. Okay? All right. So now I'm going to share screen, and we're going to go to our little chart here. Whoops. What happened here? Not that. Zoom. Stop share. Okay, I'll try again. Share screen.
Can I share something about the prayer too?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if everyone can hear me. Anyways, I just wanted to share something really quickly about Isis's prayer, Limitless Focus. And the why it's so simple is because you want to use this sigil to anchor you when you forget what you're aiming, what your vision is, right? So then you have this prayer, limitless focus, to remind ourselves of like what our intention is for this coming cycle.
Thank you, Sonia. Really well said. I really love what Sonia said too, because, you know, when we set an energy in motion or prayer in motion or vision or thought in motion, we want to be able to remember what it is we're setting in motion, the overarching energy, because we want to walk our prayer and live it and follow it. It's like really important. And so that's kind of what we're doing here. Okay. Thank you for stating that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right. So now we're going to move further in the slides. All right. So the next stage is Hode. Now you're going to write the name and or prayer for the sigil. So can everyone see this?
If they do split screen.
Okay. No, I'll take it off now. Okay. So now you're going to write the entire name of the words you want to make a sigil out of. Can they see it up close? Okay. So this says limitless focus. So go ahead and write it like one long code. Instead of writing it in multiple different words, make it one long code. Because now we're working in codes. It's moving into a coded form. Okay? So go ahead and write it in one long sentence. Okay, now, and I'm going to take it off and show you, but I just want to show you the steps and stages. Now, if you look at Netzach, it says cross out the vowels and any repeated consonant letters after the first of every letter. Example, if you have 5 L's, cross out every L after the first. All vowels, remove all vowels, and then every second, third, fourth, fifth letter of any consonant you want to cross out. Okay, so an example, this is another reason why I chose to use this, because there's a lot of S's.
I can do a side-by-side view if I figure it out.
Oh, cool, awesome. Great, so now I'm gonna show you what I spoke of, and I like this because it exemplifies that. So I'm gonna take out all the I's. Some people remove vowels, some people don't, but we are, because in a lot of the ancient magical languages, you remove the vowels because they indicate the tone, and there's a power to that, which is I'm not going to get too much into right now. So then I have L, M, T, L, S. So then I'm going to just I'm going to look at all of the letters and cross out the second, third, and fourth of every letter. So if you see, we have L, M, T, L. I'm going to cross out the second L. Then we have L, M, T, S, S, and S. I'm going to cross out the second S and the third S. So now what I have, the remaining consonant letters, I'm going to write in the code. So I have L, M, T, S, F, C. L, M, T, S, F, C. Okay? So go ahead, and once you've done that, then you cross out every letter. It's like you're erasing your tracks. Or you're completing the stages as you move forward. Cleaning up the path, too. Making sure every step along the way is tended to and taken care of. Okay? So now you want to have your single letters that are connected to your prayer. So once again, my prayer is limitless focus. And once I crossed out all those letters here, the vowels and the second letters, I end up with L, M, T, S, F, C. Okay? Are there any questions?
No.
All right. Looks like we got limitless focus. Okay, so now I'm going to erase that. Just going to move it up a little higher just so I can start to draw. So my letters are L, N, T, S, F, C. Now I know there are some people from the Serpent Path that are in this group. Now I taught you in a Serpent Path a different style than this, okay? So for those of you that were in the Serpent Path, this is different, not that much different. And then for those of you that are in the apprenticeship, Oracle Arts Apprenticeship, you know this style. I'm just doing this one because it's a little bit simpler. Okay, so now I utilized Mercury as an example for a reason. So remember we had Mercury, we had the moon, with the moon, the sun, and the equal armed cross. Do you remember that? That's the symbol of Mercury. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna create an anchor, a pole, a jed, the backbone of Osiris.
So there's a lot of new people on here that are not in from Serpent Path
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I'm aware. I just wanted to reference those that are in the apprenticeship and Serpent Path, if you've done this or not. But for those of you that are new, awesome, welcome. This is a perfect introduction. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Sonia. So I referenced Mercury, right? So we're going to use qualities of Mercury on a grid. So we have, you're going to draw a line. This is a really helpful anchor. Okay. Now on this line, sometimes you see this. You have the moon. You can draw a crescent moon up top. You can stick with this and work with this or not long term, but for now we're creating our grid. And then we have the sun at the bottom, our magic circle of life, death, and rebirth. So this is your grid you're going to work on if you want. I also like to have an equal armed cross grid sometimes that I generally will erase. So that's why I have it's a dotted line. So this is like, my 4 quadrants. You have, if you look at it, it's the medicine wheel, and you have northeast, south, and west. And you have this cross grid and your solid grid. Okay? So now the next step I suggest is you're gonna draw every single letter that's remaining on your grid. And for this particular version, it's important that it's connected to your central pillar, your central column, your Jed, D-J-E-D, is where the term Jedi comes from, or some of you, we've talked about the caduceus, where you have that caduceus came up and you have your serpents, right? The central column is the Jed. That's what we're working in. Now, the reason why is because this is our pillar, our central column, our Sushumna, our pillar. This is our anchor point for this, what sigil we're projecting. Okay? Did I make that straight? It's a little slanted. That's okay. That's okay. So now go ahead and draw each of those letters. Now this is, somebody asked this in last Sigil Craft. Keep them upright. Now they can be upright, either going right or left, but not upside down. Example, your L. You want to keep your L either going this way or this way, but you don't want to draw it upside down. You always want to draw the letter. Keep the L going this way or this way, but don't draw the L upside down.
What about backwards?
Backwards is fine.
Okay.
Yeah, backwards is fine. Okay? So go ahead and start to draw each letter at a time. I'm gonna draw it down here.
What about sideways?
Sideways is great. Mm-hmm. And just go ahead and go through all your letters. Now, oftentimes your first version is your first version, and then we do another process of distillation. So don't worry about it being generally people's first version is not the first version. I mean, not the final version. It's just the first. So just go for it and see what happens. And enjoy yourself in the process.
Someone said, what letter are you writing now?
S. This is my S.
Backwards.
Yep. It's not upside down though.
Okay.
Yeah. Backwards is fine, but just not upside down.
Maybe as you draw, tell us what letter you're drawing in.
Okay, perfect. So now I'm just drawing, I just drew my F here. So I connected my T with my F. And then I'll get the final one I'll show you in a second. And then now I'm doing my C. And I connected my C to my L. So now per someone's request, I'll show you where all my letters are. So my L was here. I drew the pillar and then I drew the L here. My M was here, the pillar down, then one side of the M here, one side of the M here. Then my T is my pillar and then my T. Then my S, here's my S. Then my F, 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 F. And then my C, I connected the top of my C to the L, because this was the L, remember? So I connected the L and the C together and I circled the sun, or the magic circle. And so now that I had my equal armed cross, and now I'm just going to erase everything there. And that's my first draft of my sigil for limitless focus. Now, if we see here, what's cool is we worked with Mercury as a template. Now, why? Is because Mercury is, we talked about Mercury can move through different worlds, and we were talking about with sigils and subconscious. It's a bridge between the subconscious, the conscious, and the superconscious. So that it has this. I like to think of it as this mercurial quality where it can move through parts of my conscious, and my superconscious. And then also inside the Mercury symbol, we saw the equal armed cross, which is the elements, and then we have the sun and the moon. So now we have a grid that we're working with in relationship to the equal armed cross is planet Earth. And then the moon, we see the moon at night and we see the sun in the day. These are the primary planetary relationships that we are working with in our cycle of the year, our seasonal cycle of the year. So I felt like this was a great way to start the new year, because we're always with the sun and the moon on planet Earth. Obviously, Venus and Jupiter and Saturn and other planets sometimes we see, but the cycles we're working with regularly. Okay? So we're going to give everyone a couple more minutes, and then we're going to move to the next stage. So now you have then I erase my letters now that I have my symbol. And Mercury was our anchor. Now, Mercury being an anchor had a purpose, as we discussed. And that's something to notice, to think about. Even having your anchor or your pillar, why is that your pillar? Why is that your anchor? Really understanding the details of why you choose to do something. A, because it brings more meaning and mythology and story into your life. And B, because then we are that much more in communion with the divine aspects of creation, working together.
We have a question.
Yeah, any questions?
And yeah, do they have to touch the lines, or can they be touching only the moon or sun?
They can be touching only the moon or the sun. Yeah, because the moon, great question. Because the moon and the sun are part of the anchor of the jed, the middle pillar. So it can just be touching the moon or the sun. Yes, great question. Now, when the caduceus was brought up, which is great, the caduceus symbol, which in a way, the caduceus energy is here. So the caduceus, the classic symbol here, the medical symbol, it's like this, right? There's like two serpents and a middle pillar. Sometimes you see wings. Now, oftentimes these serpents reference, you have the water snake and the fire snake. You know, one of them is a water snake, one of them is a fire snake on the jed. So you have solar and lunar qualities in the caduceus. Now you have that here too. You have the middle pillar, the jed, and then you have your lunar qualities and your solar qualities present as anchor points in your sigil. So it's very much similar to that, just in a little bit of a different way. And the caduceus oftentimes references Mercury, because Hermes Trismegistus, thrice greatest born, is also another name for Mercury. So we're working with mercurial qualities of solar and lunar principles with the central pillar, which is the jed, the Jedi, the Shishumna. And it feels really important too, because of this time of, you know, coronation, health and vitality feel very, very important, you know, clearly, which is good. It's like we're all going through a major transformation in our care and our awareness of our health and how important health and vitality is. And so we're working in relationship to qualities of that symbol of the caduceus and Mercury in our craft too. So it's carried in this focus around health and vitality and the ability to be present in our lives. And that's our anchor point. Okay, any more questions? And if not, we'll move on.
No.
Okay, great. So we're gonna move on. Good job, everyone. So fun. Get to draw all day. Love it. Pretty soon there's going to be all these reasons to make another sigil. I mean, I have a book literally of sigils because there's so many reasons to use them. Now, okay, we did these parts. We did Tiferet. You want to have a timeline with your sigil. So we created the axis. Yep, we did this. Okay. Okay, so now the next part, and this is where distillation of your sigil oftentimes can occur. Now again, we did a version where we're working with an anchor that's connected to Mercury, that's also connected to the sigil of the caduceus, because they're related. You know, the story of Hermes with the staff and two serpents, had a staff and then went towards the two serpents, and they wove up this staff to make the caduceus. And then it's a symbol of health and vitality in the medical industry. We have solar and lunar principles with the jed. We have the jed, and then we have the equal armed cross, which represented on the grid of the earth, the directions. And then we have the moon and the sun. Okay. So the next practice we're going to do is a very simple trance-like practice. Now you can do this in a variety of different ways. The trance part is important because then you actually are infusing and activating your sigil. Now there's a lot of different forms of trance. What are some examples of trance? Let's just get some chat ideas. What are ways to induce that trance-like state? Kundalini drumming, those are great versions, absolutely. Kundalini drumming, what are some other ones?
Tongues,
speaking in tongues, song, absolutely. Some other ones? Dance, for sure, sex, orgasm. Drinking tea, absolutely, 100%. For those that don't do Kundalini, even just breath of fire, pranayama is a good one. Meditation is in a trance-inducing state. Mantra, absolutely. Mantra is a great one too. Now you can also, which we're not going to do in this session, we'll do in a future class, but you can also create a mantra out of your sigil letters that then you can utilize that mantra to infuse your symbol that is made up of the letters. That's another practice you can do, but we're not going to do that in this one. Hypnosis for sure. Praying, absolutely. All of these are incredible examples. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do a simple version, which is the mind's eye version for the context of timing. So what you're going to want to do on your altar later tonight or even tomorrow, etc., is you'll, well, let's do the step first and I'll get to that. Okay, so what you want to do now is you want to gaze upon your sigil in the mind's eye style. So a simple way is you look at the tip of your nose, and you look at the tip of your nose and then all of a sudden you start to see double. That's a way where one of my teachers was like, that's a way you can kind of dive deeper into the subconscious and imprint the sigil in your subconscious. Okay, so go ahead and do that. Just look at your nose, and then when you get the double, gaze upon your sigil. And then you start to see its form changing. It's like when the two become one, then you enter the kingdom of heaven. So this is that threshold moment, because when you see two and they start to become one, as above, so below, that which is above is that which is below, as within, so without. When the two become one, then you enter the kingdom of heaven. You're starting to open up this liminal state, this threshold state, that's right in between. You're dreaming and awaking, this conscious and this subconscious and the superconscious. And so that's part of what's happening here, right? So you're building that bridge, because remember, your sigil is a bridge between your subconscious and your conscious and superconscious. So now you have the double and the two become one, and you imprint the first stage of your sigil. Now notice with the double eyes, the double gaze, what are some details that you see on the sigil? You might see, like, where my S is, I kind of see another aspect of the S that I want to develop a little further. And then I look and I see an aspect too of the M I want to develop a little further. You can start to see distillation in your sigil occurring through that liminal state. Okay? So now we're going to go back to our sigil and just start to work on it some more, like enjoy. I'm going to, because what I saw in that double gazing state, I saw a little bit more detail in the S, and I saw a little bit more detail in my M's, and I'm just going to kind of work on it a little bit more and just refine it. Yeah, it's really trippy. It's really wild how well it works. Does that make sense? Are there any questions? Because now we're going to go back and do some more work on our craft. Okay? All right, so go ahead and work on your sigil. Now again, you can go back to that gazing state to get the two become one, the double eye, and they're considered two. This is where we get back into the solar and lunar principles, because in the eyes of, Ra and Heru, you have the sun and the moon. So it's also, each eye sometimes can represent a hemisphere of the brain that represents the sun and the moon. So you're activating those solar and lunar qualities in your own consciousness too, into your sigil. Okay?
Can we erase a bit?
Yes,
or only add?
you can. You can erase a bit for sure. And this is your process of refinement. That's a great question, Jasmine. I'm glad you asked that, because in the original sigil I had as an image, the Academy of Oracle Arts, it's pretty like distilled into a very, very simple sigil. So you can absolutely erase. Great question. Okay, so go ahead and work on it some more. I'm going to do that too. Sonia's cross-eyed over here.
We can't see.
I don't know if Brandon's on this call, but I just want to thank Brandon because Brandon had some great questions that helped really influence things I shared on this call. So I just want to acknowledge that. And I just appreciate questions and feedback because that helps to guide details that maybe could have been missed. So please always feel free to ask questions. They're very, very helpful.
Shall we draw each letter in order so we can do it backwards or in any order, or does that even matter?
Good question. Oh, you are. Brandon here is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Also asked, so Natalia asked, can the letters be upside down? No.
No, letters right side up for this class in the mercurial for the work we're doing with the Mercury. And then, great question, Natalia. And then can we draw, hi Natalia, shall we draw each letter in order or can we do it backwards or in any order? So I would recommend drawing your letters in order. After you cross your second, third, and fourth, draw them in order. That's my recommendation. You don't technically have to, but you're working, because it's like part of what we're doing with the practice, right, is we're working in a flow of creation. So the flow of creation of the prayer that you set in motion has a flow of creation too. So I like to think of it that way. I'm working in the flow of creation that way.
Okay, so 2 other questions Brandon had. Should the Sojourn be in one color or in black ink?
It can be multiple colors. I've done that too, where I've had multiple colors. That's a great question.
And then does it matter if the letters are all caps or lowercase?
Nope, can be either capital or lowercase.
And then Auten is doing his sigil.
Auten! Oh my God, will you show us when you're done? Please, so we can project your sigil into the grid. That would be awesome. Perfect. Yeah, so then it can be capitalized or lowercase, either way. All right. So fun. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the share screen here.
And I figured out how to make it split screen so you can keep it up if you need.
Okay, perfect. All right. Are we ready to move on? We need 1 more minute.
I'm ready to move on.
Yeah? Anybody need any more minutes or if you need more minutes, it's okay. Just let us know.
One more minute, please.
Okay, great. I had a feeling. So let's take another minute. How about another minute and a half?
Can I use your charger?
Yeah. I have a timer now, so you have about another minute and a half. Now, the thing is it's important, like let's say somebody asked about calling in a partner. There might be a point where you feel complete with the sigil. You did the sigil did its workings. So then you want to close the sigil. You don't want to keep it open unnecessarily, you know? Some sigils are meant to keep going, like my school one, you know, the Academy of Oracle Arts. That one's meant to keep going, like the logo of, you know, all these companies that we shared about earlier, or the hashtag logo. Those are meant to keep going and growing. Some sigils are meant to have a completion timeline, and sometimes you'll know the completion and sometimes you won't. Sometimes you'll want to work with the sigil just for a month and see what happens, a new moon cycle to a new moon cycle. Sometimes that's really useful, or a new moon to a full moon, to work clearly on your timeline with the sigil. Because sometimes that can help manifest things too, because you're setting it in motion with a clear timeline. Sometimes if we keep things way, way, way too open forever, creation's like, no rush, and it's also means no rush, but it's, it just has its own timeline. So it just depends. Okay. So I just want to speak to that. That's a very Hokmah thing. Now, part of the function of Hokmah in this order is consistency in charging your sigil while you're working with it. Because once you stop charging it, it's complete. It loses its energy. Now, how do you charge it? We discussed already through the trance-like states. It doesn't mean you have to do the trance-like state every single day. However, it can be helpful. Now, let's say you want to work with and create a day that you do the trance-like practice. There are planetary associations, which every day of the week, Monday is Moon Day. Tuesday is Mars Day. Wednesday is Mercury Day. Let's say you want to work with Mercury because this is our access point for this particular sigil. Wednesday would be a great day to do your trance practice to charge your sigil. Another one is the day of Jupiter, which is Thursday, because Jupiter is so much about expansion, expanding. That would be a great day to charge your sigil also. Or if you really are feeling it and you have a solid mental morning or daily practice and you want to charge your sigil every day, you can do that too. Okay. So that's very important because the moment you stop charging it is the moment it closes too. Now, if you are drawing your sigil on a talisman or a necklace and or a stone, I'm not going to get too deep into talismans in this class, but just a stone or a necklace pendant. When you're complete with the sigil, you want to close it and clear the energy. You can clear it by putting it in a bowl of salt, or you can clear it. I lost everyone here on my thing, but is everyone still here? Okay. Or you can close it by putting it out into some water through the night with the moonlight. Either way. Okay.
Victoria, how do you charge the sigil? Simply by meditating on it?
Yeah, so you charge a sigil with any trance-like practice. It can be meditation where you're gazing upon it. Gazing upon it's the key. You want to look at it, by meditation can be an exercise. I think I spoke earlier of jumping jacks. That's one I've done before where I've taped the sigil on the wall and stared at it and done jumping jacks for a series of minutes. Pranayama, a breath practice. Orgasm, sexual practice. Drumming, somebody brought up drumming earlier. Song's a great one where you sing to your sigil, or a mantra. I did speak of earlier that we're not doing in this class, but you can turn your letters into a mantra that you then tone to your sigil too as a practice of charging it. And we'll do that in another class.
Do you want to leave room for questions?
Yeah, great. So one more thing before we go, I wanted to just share. My whole thing came down. I don't know why. 1 second. I'm trying to pull up my group here. For some reason my internet went out. I wanted to show you one more thing per Sonia's suggestion of sigils within a sigil. Okay, oops. This is an example. Can they see it? Okay, this is an example of a sigil within a sigil. So these are all sigils. This is one big sigil made up of many sigils. So you see all the zodiacal signs, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, so on and so forth. Those are all sigils. You see the lunar qualities. Those are sigils. You see the upward facing triangle often represents, spirit, body, or fire. Upward facing triangle with the cross, mind or air. These are all sigils. There's more down here. Then you see the planetary sigils that we talked about. And then you see, lightning and serpent. You see all the solar rays and then the stars. So this is one sigil made up of many sigils. And so it's really worth noting and paying attention to and seeing I think if you want to, noticing where sigils are kind of everywhere. You know, like one of the things here at Ouroboros, we love Moroccan rugs, and we love to support Berber weavers, the Amazigh weavers, and they weave the symbols and the sigils of their villages and their families and their migration patterns into the rug. So every time we look at a rug, we're seeing the different symbols and sigils of their tribe, you know, or like we talked about logos, things like that. So it's just worth noting how often you see them. And one thing that's also worth noting too, what sigils and symbols do we see are being projected into the world that we don't necessarily even think about? For instance, billboards. Like what sigils and symbols are on billboards? Because remember, the sigils and the symbols, they can reach into the subconscious. And so when we build this relationship with this practice, we can start to unlock any kinds of energies that are trying to enter into our subconscious that we don't necessarily want to allow in or agree with. Such as, you know, this is my preference, I'm not a big McDonald's person, so I don't really want to focus on that as a symbol or sigil. And so when I see it, I will turn my head, because that's not my choice, you know, but however anyone chooses is fine for them. So this is where we start to become more aware of what symbols and sigils are influencing us, and then we become more clear of what we allow to influence us or not, and then what kind of prayer or intentions we are influencing in our lives. We become more of the influence versus letting something influence us. This is where we step into our magicianship-like qualities in nature, creative qualities in nature. Okay, are there any questions? Okay, you can unmute if you want to, or you can just type it in the chat.
Future Eyes, love this.
Awesome. Creature eyes. Awesome. Rent.
He put a sigil in the, whoa, that was cool. Put some type of sigil as a font.
Oh, sigil as a font. I'm so glad you brought that up, Brent. Fonts are sigils. The alphabet is a sigil. A, B, C, D, E, F. They're all symbols and sigils. The hieroglyphic letters are sigils. The Hebrew letters are sigils. They're symbols. You know, when we think about, you know, I'm very much a student of hieroglyphs right now. So I love thinking about hieroglyphs. Every hieroglyphic symbol or every Hebrew letter has so much meaning embedded in it. Like, for instance, one of our teachers, Shira Salzman, in our academy, she teaches the Hebrew language. One letter has worlds of meanings associated with it, and rituals and practices, you know? And so that's what we're doing right now. Okay, any more questions?
Thank you so much. This has been very generous offering. It's very enlightening. I wish I could draw a cooler G on my sigil. Keep distilling it. Yes, keep distilling it.
Keep it going. I mean, for me, as my growing quality and artistic nature, when I first started drawing sigils, they weren't exactly the fullest expression of what I wanted, but I kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it. And I would always find my way, you know? And also too, just love what you create, because that's your prayer, you know? One of my teachers had said to me, no matter what you create, give it the trance-like feeling of love, because that is your prayer. And that's the most important thing. That's your intention. I remember when he said that to me, it really helped me out. Okay, so we have some questions?
Yes. If the long prayer sigil isn't turning out as a magnet to you as a simpler version, is it the full prayer still infused in the simplified?
Absolutely, 100%. That's a great question. When it's a long prayer and you distill it into something very simple, it's all in there, because you literally, with your imagination, your mind, and your action, your imagination, your thought, and your action, you wrote it out. So it came out of the subconscious into form. Then you did all the ritual practice to distill it, you know, and then it became a symbol. And it can be as simple as, you know, like the Academy of Oracle Arts sigil is very, very simple. But like I did the entire ritual practice to distill it to that. So everything's in there. It's a very good question. Thank you.
Okay, Crystal, do your personal sigils lose any power or others if others see them?
Only if you feel like it's losing power. The way you keep the keep it charged, because no, because like for instance, you know, the school, that's the sigil I put out into the world. But the way that I keep it charged is by charging it. So it will lose its energy if you don't give it any love or attention, just like anything. And so when you give it the love and intention and you charge it and you project it and you care for it, it continues to grow. Mm-hmm. But it's a great question, because some sigils I will not show anybody. It's really about what prayer is meant to be shared with others and what isn't. Like I have a sigil book that I don't show any. I think I've showed one person my sigil book. And that's just for me and my personal magical practices. But then other sigils I definitely share into the world. So it's really up to you. You know, some things are just meant for us and our relation with the divine, and some things are meant to be shared. It's a great question.
Okay, so Future Eye, would you like to unmute? You have your hand raised. Go ahead and unmute yourself if you have any questions. Victoria, and one must cross out the older versions, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes. You definitely want to cross out your older versions because you've completed that stage in the process. It's kind of like when you cook a meal and you tend and clean up after your meal so that the next meal has a clean slate, kind of a thing. You want to definitely do that. Like I like to think of it as like cleaning up my tracks, tending to every stage along the way, so that then when it comes to just the sigil that I'm projecting, that's my primary focus. There's not all this other stuff that I have to energetically manage, because oftentimes we'll end up mediating all those energies. So we really want to like simplify fully. So that's it. It's a great question. Mm-hmm.
Everyone just has lots of gratitude. Thank you so much. More creative the second time. Thank you so much. So potent and powerful. Perfect way to begin the evening. Lots of gratitude.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge, my teachers too. And, William J. Kiesel is a very important teacher in my life. So I just want to speak his name here. And he really taught me this practice. He's taught me other kinds of sigil craft practices. I mean, this is one version. There are many different versions. And I would also, sometimes when we're entering into the magical realms and, we get to know, we're building a relationship with the mystery, it becomes almost like, sometimes we dabble in things that we're not ready for. I've done that. I don't know about you guys, but I've definitely done that. And I think it's really important to take time with certain practices as we're learning them. And sometimes even with sigils, because they can be such eloquent art forms, that we'll look it up and see all different kinds of images, and we might start projecting it, but we might not know what we're projecting. So, you might go online and you'll see so many different kinds. And, before you start working with it ritually or sharing it or projecting it, really get to know what you're working with and make sure your heart, mind, body, and spirit fully agrees with it. Because sometimes we start working with things that we're not sure, we don't really know what it is, and then we end up creating messes that we have to clean up. So as you enter more into these ways, just mindfulness and care, one of my favorite things that one of my elders always says is like, take care of things, take care of everything, take care of everything really good. Because the way you take care of things and tend to things is exactly how it's going to grow. I love that. And that just sits with me all the time, because really as magician, in this magicianship energy we're working with, we're not doing magic, we're becoming magicians. So all acts become magical acts. Lan Milo Duquette. It's like this practice here is the actual practice of taking the time to imagine and then to think about and what our prayer is or our sigil is, and then do the ritual magical practice. We're also doing a distillation practice on the inside. And then we make the sigil. We're working with our own creation, creative energy to project into the field what it is we want to illuminate and develop on the inside in our lives to be of service to all of our relations, human and non-human. So I like to think of it that way. And before we go, I just want to see if Atan was open to sharing his sigil before we close. I think it'd be just a blessing if Atan's open to sharing. Is he there?
Let's see if they're still here.
They might have to go.
Natalia, you still here?
If not, it's okay. And then,
I think she left.
okay, so then now what I was hoping for is everyone that feels ready to show their sigil, please bring your sigil to the camera. And then right now is the first step in starting to project it into the field if you want to. And then we can see on the gallery view everyone that feels ready to share wherever they're at. This is the first step in projecting. And then from there, we're going to do our final closing prayer. I want to see him. Can I see him too?
Yeah. Here, you have to come here.
Okay. I'm going to come check him out real quick.
Wow.
This is so awesome.
Those are so good.
Wow.
Oh my God, can we screen share this?
I want to see some more. This is so beautiful, you guys.
Wow.
This is so fun.
So good.
So now we're like, this is a magical practice in and of itself, us all aligning our sigils together.
Wait, keep your sigils
Keep them up.
Keep them up.
So like this is now us
Sigils.
all aligning and projecting our sigils together as a community. And this right now is a sigilic practice. Because now we've created a circle of sigils, a grid. We have literally a gallery grid of sigils.
These are so good. Wow. Dang. Wow.
All right.
So good.
Awesome. Thank you. And so one other thing I just wanted to share that you can do, some of you have already done this before. We just did a grid. We just sigilically projected our sigils in the grid, in a grid of sigils, in the grid that is the sigil, which is amazing. So that's our first stage. And then one other thing I want to share that you can do with your community or your loved ones or one other person is you can create a group sigil. Let's say you have a prayer for like peace in the planet, you know? And I'm just using it as an example because that's definitely part of my prayer. You can create a sigil together where you have one prayer that you both agree on or your group agrees on. And one by one, you do the same practice, and one by one, each person draws a letter, and then you group together and you distill that sigil, and then you charge it together with the trance-like practice, and then you each go home and you have those sigils to keep projecting them in the field. It's a very, very powerful practice. So that's something you can bring home in your community too. And I do think, I was so happy Atan's here because in any other children, it's a really beautiful practice to start sharing with children too. And, you know, Selena, I'm sure Vivian's somewhere in this class because somewhere then, you know, this craft, you know, this ritualistic craft helps us bring more intention into our way of life and everything we're doing. And then, you know, our children start to think about the prayers they're setting in motion. I taught this class once to a group of 10 to 12-year-olds, and then we all did pranayama to charge our sigil. And it was just so profound, and to hear what their prayers were. And it's just like really a beautiful practice to share multi-generationally too. So keep it going. And thank you to 2020, you know, all of these lessons. I'm going to make a final prayer here. Just want to say thank you to 2020. This was a major one, you know, sure we all feel that. And to all the people that had a really rough year, you know, may somehow in some way all the blessings show themselves. And for those that might be still having a hard time right now, may blessings rain upon you, truly. And as we're doing the Sigil Craft work, you know, the blessings that we feel from this, may this also spread and be shared, and somehow in some way touch the hearts, minds, bodies, and spirits of those that could benefit from some really good blessings right now. Just blessings moving forward. And in completing 2020, just all the lessons. This has been a big year. May we integrate them fully, the ones that are ours to integrate, and also let go completely of the parts of things that have happened that need to be complete, and let them go fully, honestly, and truly. And then the lessons that we're meant to carry forward, may we carry them forward in a good way. And with this sigil practice, may we project into this new year beauty and goodness that really helps others, and because we're all in this together, may everything that we're doing as a collective here, a grid of sigil craft workers, sigil craft warriors and healers and beings, that whatever we're projecting in the field, may we also feel connected to every single person here that has done that too, and feel connected in a circle and a web of those that care about creating beauty in the world and creating the new systems that make the old systems, that replace the systems that are moving on, And every time we work with our sigil, we remember and feel connected to this grid, this gallery, this group here, this gallery of artists, and feel woven in the web like that. And then again, just want to say thank you to all the benevolent beings of the 3 worlds and the 8 directions. Thank you. Thank you to each and every, to the Oracle, Nefertiti, Queen Tai, Lilith, the entire council. Thank you to all of our teachers and guides and allies along the way. And thank you to all of our benevolent ancestors that way too. And thank you to all these ancestral homelands, all of the native people, the original peoples, and all of the living beings, the 4-legged, the 2-legged, the swimming ones, the standing ones, the insect beings, the winged ones, all of the elements of creation in the natural and divine world, the ecosystem of relationships that each and every one of us are always interdependently connected to. May we be more aware of our influence and more aware of what influence we allow in, so that we continue to be part of building a beautiful, abundant, nourishing, a very just glorious ecosystem of relationships. And in that way, may it support us in our paths and healing in our hearts, minds, bodies, and spirits, and also in that way assist us in supporting others. Blessed be, and so it is. All right, blessings on the rest of your evening and or morning, wherever you are. And thank you all for doing this work together. Beautiful offering from all of us into the collective. Thank you.
Everyone says thank you, blessings, blessings, thank you, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Everyone.
Forgot to say that part.
Thank you so
New
much.
Year.
Happy New Year.